jiu-jitsu sweeping methods to create the opportunity for us to come up into top position and wrestle up. All right, guys, so as we start rolling into this video, we're going to basically try to look at all the techniques that we're going to cover in this instructional with a basic philosophy in mind, right? And then there's going to be a lot of smaller concepts that fall into play, kind of depending upon what little position that we're in, whether we're in a seated guard or whether we're going against a kneeling opponent, a standing opponent, etc. But in general, when you look at wrestling up, all right, in no-gi grappling, the way that you want to look at it, or a good way for you to look at it, is that no matter what reversal you're looking to use in jiu-jitsu, whatever sweeps you're looking to initiate, whatever attacks you're looking to initiate, when it comes to reversing your partner and going in from bottom position and just looking to solidify top position, the basic philosophy, right, the basic principle here is that you start with jiu-jitsu and you finish with wrestling. So if you look at the sport of no-gi grappling and you compare it to gi grappling, in the gi, there is a massive discrepancy compared to no-gi with as it relates to wrestle ups. All right. So if you look at sweeps with a gi on, or reversals with a gi on, and reversals without a gi, there are so many reversals with a gi on that don't require the act of wrestling up, because of the fact that you have sleeves, you have lapels, you have collars, you got pant grips, you got all sorts of different grips that you can hold on to that make the act of sweeping, I don't want to say easier, but it just makes it different. Okay. So there's a lot of crossover in the techniques. There's a lot of similarities in the techniques. The goals are the same, but the way that you execute them and the way that you typically enter into them from neutral positions changes. Okay. So what we're looking at is the finishing, right? The way that you complete the reversal. The execution of the reversal is significantly different from gi to no gi. Okay. So that's where this basic philosophy comes from. So if you look at wrestling up, if you look at it just kind of in the conventional way where I'm sitting in front of a standing opponent, I just go in and I shoot a single or a double, that's great. That's one way to look at it. But there's the expansion of wrestle ups goes far beyond that, right? So the reason why this video is at the end of this series is because it kind of sums up the reversal portion of all the stuff that we looked at in the previous instructionals. So we looked at before, or all the individual systems, and the reversals are kind of like your jiu-jitsu one-on-one reversals. Still very effective, but as you start going against higher and higher level opponents, it becomes more and more difficult to reverse them, right? The higher the skill level, the higher the athleticism, becomes increasingly more difficult. So you have to get used to this idea of wrestling up on your partner. And so you don't have to initiate with a wrestle up, but you typically want to finish with a wrestle up, right? The execution of the reversal comes from a wrestle up. So as a general philosophy, and you're going to notice it not just in this video, but as you guys go and you start sparring in the gym, it might be something that you subconsciously understand, but you don't realize it when you're actually doing it, right? So you might be sparring and you might subconsciously almost sweep your partner and then come up and finish with a wrestle up. And if you look at high level competitive no-gi grappling, the vast majority, like we're talking upwards of 80 or even 90% of the reversals in high level competition, talking about like ADCC and things like that, usually start with jiu-jitsu and finish with wrestle ups. So you're playing guard, you hit a traditional jiu-jitsu 101 sweep, a reversal, some sort of an ashigarami knockout, some sort of an inversion that stumbles, off balances your partner, puts them in a position where you can then finish by coming forward and wrestling up. Something that's a little bit that's not always required when you have a gi on, right? If you can go and you can knock your training partner down with a gi, a lot of times you have a pant grip, a lot of times you have a sleeve grip, you have a lapel grip that you can use to help prevent your training partner from getting up, and you can use that to complete the reversal. With no gi, because you don't have access to those grips, and because the grips that you have are more or less temporary, okay, depending upon what the grip is, like a grip on the ankle versus a grip on the pants is significantly more or less robust. So if I try to hit a move that might be look like the exact same move, the difference between those grips makes it just increasingly more difficult to finish that reversal if I don't wrestle up, right? So that's just kind of the general philosophy as it goes into wrestle ups. You can absolutely initiate with wrestle ups, but a large portion of the video that we're going to go into is going to be starting with jiu-jitsu and finishing with wrestle up. So it kind of sums up the series that we've been looking at. Okay. And you're going to see a lot of crossover and a lot of the techniques that we've looked at in the previous instructionals from all the different types of guard and the systems that we've looked at. And we're going to look at how that ties into and chains with wrestle ups. Okay. And if you can master this portion, it's going to make executing the stuff that we looked at in the previous instructionals significantly higher. Your percentage of success is going to be significantly higher as it relates to reversals. All right, guys. So when we're looking at reversing somebody or just kind of attacking in general, it always starts with some sort of break in your training partner's stance, some sort of break in their fundamental posture. So with any given position, offensive or defensive, there's a posture that's more or less ideal, right? Independent of the actual situation. For the purposes of what we're talking about today, we're playing guard, our opponent is in passing, right? And so there's a variety of different stances that your training partner can present to you. And it's up to us if we want to get some sort of meaningful offense to start with an off balance. And all that off balance does, right, this idea of creating off balance, creating kazushi, all it does is it creates a break in your training partner's stance. And that break in your training partner's stance creates extension sometimes. Okay. It creates opportunities for attack, right? So if I want to go into a submission, I have to extend my training partner's limbs. Okay. Say I want to go into an armbar. Say I want to go into a triangle. I have to create some degree of limb extension, leg locks, whatever. And that will create the opportunity for me to